So what is a smart building? And I noticed that you guys on your website make the delineation between smart and intelligence. So can you talk about the difference between that, given that both of those are very fuzzy buzzwords at this point in our industry?
They are definitely used very interchangeably for sure. We think that there's a difference between smart and intelligent. I think that I'll give you an example, but just kind of from a definitional standpoint, I think smart is really about having smart devices, and you can have a lot of smart devices, smart systems installed into a building. So you could have a lot of smart thermostats or air quality sensors or other kind of IoT devices throughout the building, and even have like a very new access control system that deems itself as smart because it's connected and there's analytics coming off of it. But the way we think about buildings in general is that they should be connected. So things in a building don't happen in a silo. Everything, all the operations happens together. And so we can't look at even the data coming off of it in a silo. So the way we define intelligent buildings is that everything is connected. So all of those smart devices are connected. So the systems and the devices are connected, but you can't leave out the most important piece of a building in a building operations. And that's really about how humans use space. So a lot of companies that claim to be smart or intelligent lack bringing in the human component to it. So without how people use space, you're missing a big piece of the picture. So where I define kind of intelligence and how cohesion defines intelligence is that every part of the building is cohesive, connected, and we're getting analytics that are holistic, that are combined. So we don't just look at HVAC alone, we look at HVAC along with occupancy of how people use space. We don't look at, visitor management in a silo as just a siloed kind of work stream. We look at visitor management in combination with how tenants use space and look at occupancy as a whole. So all of these are really in a very holistic manner together. And so that's what we define as intelligence, is a building that's working cohesively together, both the systems and the people.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a differentiator. If I could just restate that back to you, you might have occupancy data that's maybe used for HVAC or occupancy data that's used for space management, but when you have a cohesive platform, you're able to use that same data across all of these different channels. And obviously, it's a rising tide, right? The more data is shared between the different channels, the better each channel does at the job it was doing before.
Right.
Cool. So you guys also talk about this term deep system integrations. Is that kind of what you mean by deep system integration, where you're connecting all of them together? Or am I missing the definition on that one? Can you kind of give us the background there?
Sure. So I guess deep for us is that we look at an integration in the context of how are we going to push towards an autonomous building. So we look at it as an integration is only as good as what we can command back to it when that building becomes connected. And so for us, let's take access control, for example. We can pull data out of the access control system, but we create a user interface where we give tenants the tools to be able to enter and remove new employees. So they take security out of the mix so that it is in real time that they're adding and removing employees and giving them clearances. Now, that's just a work stream, right? But what we're doing from that is taking the data out of that and being able to say, all right, well, we've got that integration that if people enter in information into our system or the access control system, it's the same data on either end. And so when we look at then, as we look at occupancy and pulling out data of how people use buildings, so when they come in, when they scan how many badges they have, we have the same data that's in that base access control system in our system as well, so that it could inform HVAC. And now we also know what floors people are on because it's all tied to access control. So our integrations, when I say deep, it's not that we just bypass that system and we have a one-way integration. We want to be able to command back to any of those systems. So this is a better one where from an HVAC standpoint, if we only read the data, so if we read the temperature off of a thermostat, that would be one thing. Great, that's information, but we can't make a building smarter if we can't take that occupancy data and say, hey, let's actually influence the building and make it responsive to the amount of people that are in the building. So right now, some of the buildings are manually doing that, understanding, right, that occupancy is less than 5% in buildings, due to this crisis that we're in. And so they're manually influencing the building systems to save money and reduce energy waste. But what if the building could do all this on their own? What if the building system could be set up so that it is responsive and it is autonomous? So that's what we're getting to.
No, that's very helpful. Yeah, I didn't put that together just by the term, so it really helps. So I understand it definitely from an analytics perspective. So I've definitely set up a lot of analytics implementations that are one way, and you couldn't easily go back and modify the technology stack to make it two way. You basically have to start over, right? So I know there are a lot of people that are listening that are coming at it from that perspective, but like a lot of them are still doing this where, like we talked about Excel macros, maybe like the next step up from Excel macros is like everyone's pulling data from a SQL database that the building automation system is pushing trends into right now. So if you have that infrastructure set up, you can't then start commanding back to the BAS with what you have set up. So that's definitely fascinating. And I think a lot of people can look at their integration processes and go, are we really set up for this next phase, which is more advanced supervisory control capabilities?